We are back with week 2 mustache prospects and injured players. And listen, we got 10 fantastic names for you, so you need to stick around for the whole episode of today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ahne, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ahne. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly, truly appreciate it if you could do that for us too. And guys, what's really actually, the really most important thing this time of year, you got to join us on the Subtext platform. On the Subtext platform, it's an in-depth, personalized experience. We can get those text messaging alerts right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in these 30-minute episodes. And like I said, this time of year, it's extra special. You're getting those waiver wire rankings with a little bit of extra detail, more than we can do in these episodes. You're also going to get these instant call-up alerts when these top prospects get called up. So once again, make sure you join us on the Subtext platform. The link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And all right, man, this is a fun episode. I think we got some really action-packed names today, especially this first one. So honestly, I'm not even going to tease it much because this is one of Matt's guys. Matt's got the breakdown for you on this first prospect. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, buddy. If you were paying attention to the MLB draft, which only real baseball nerds do, like me, you were checking out this kid Nick Kurtz that was drafted to the Athletics, and the kid is absolutely crushing it so far this year. Look, through 34 at bats in first lick of AAA, 8 runs, 4 doubles, 4 bombs, 12 ribs, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, batting .412, an OBP of 460, a slug of 882, and an OPS of 1342. The kid honestly has sick power. In all honesty, I am a big fan of him. I actually grabbed him in my dynasty draft because I kind of just was like, okay, he was one of the sneakier first basemen. He could honestly be one of those guys we're actually talking about as a first round, not a first round, but a number 1 first baseman at the position at some point in the near future, quite honestly, because the kid just has all the tangibles. And that's a little bold prediction aspect, but like you look at what he's got, right? 65 out of 65 raw power, 35 game power out of 60, speed 30-30. The fielding needs a little bit of work, but the hit tool is pretty decent as well. Nick Kurtz, honestly, the way he's crushing the ball already is already going to put himself into a moment. It's not a matter of if he gets called up this year. It's really just a matter of when. We've seen it time and time again. When a guy starts off hot, they just will themselves to the bigs. I could totally see Kurtz getting called up right after the Super 2, keep the control a little bit, and then boom. So Kurtz is somebody you need to keep an eye on. He's already crushing the ball. Honestly, it's going to be very hard for them to keep it out. And plus, the second he gets to the bigs, it's not like he's going to a bigger stadium. He's going to another AAA park, which just makes it that much more fun with the Butlers, the Rookers, the Wilsons, and everybody else on that team that's actually performing, I think, pretty well. So Kurtz is just going to be a plus and actually going to be able to perform, I think, in 4 categories. So Kurtz is somebody you need to watch out for this year and pay attention closely.
Yeah, Matt, great take on Kurtz. I agree with everything you said. Big body, too. And you mentioned 6'5", 240 for the big first baseman. Kurtz, just built to crush those baseballs. Right now, Kurtz actually up to 7% owned on Yahoo. Like Matt says, you kind of see the writing on the wall. I think the only thing that's holding him back is, I think he would have already been called up if there was a spot. I think it's just the spot. Soderstrom has been crushing, having a breakout year at first. You got Rooker at DH. I think the thing is that maybe they get Rooker back into the outfield somehow. He's, not a great outfielder, but maybe they find a way to get him into the outfield and, which I could totally see happening sooner than later. But, injury happens, I mean, he's right in that lineup. I think I don't see anybody else that they would call up at this point. Kurtz is just crushing AAA right now. He obviously is too good for it. So I think that call up is going to come obviously sooner than later. I think deep leagues, where you have maybe an NA spot, where you have extra bench spots, something like that, stash them there. Probably not in those shallower leagues. But definitely everywhere, throw Nick Kurtz on your watch list. Once again, first baseman of the Athletics. Let's move on to this next guy, somebody who actually got traded not too long ago. Let's move on to Kyle Teal, catcher for the Chicago White Sox. Here's the thing. He is one of the top, arguably one of the top prospects in all of baseball. Definitely one of the best catching prospects in all of baseball. Right now, those White Sox are miserable. They have Matt Dice playing catcher right now. It's not super competition there for Teal. Came over from the Red Sox. I think the job is his to win. Teal is Teal is somebody who, has proven it in the minors this year right now. Isn't doing great. 235 so far batting average through the first 9 games. He does have 2 homers, 9 RBIs, though. He does have 6 walks to 12 strikeouts. You love to see that. But last year, Kyle Teal hit 288 across 2 levels with 13 homers, 78 RBIs, even chipped in 12 steals. Kind of has that, JT Realmuto build almost, where he could steal some bags. Has a pretty good, glove behind the plate. I think it's just really how the White Sox, it could be a situation where they're just losing out and, they don't want to promote him. But, I think if he gets hot, which I'm sure Teal will, because, he has the track record, has the, the tools to get it done in the minors. I think they just might at some point just call up, those young kids in the season, the White Sox, just to see what they have going into next year. Maybe even to advertise some of these guys for trades, to see what goes on. But Kyle Teal is a great prospect. You do want to keep your eyes on him in 2 catcher leagues and stuff like that. Throw him on your watch list. Ivan Herrera got hurt. Catcher is a very fickle, position. So, they go down a lot. They go through a lot of wear and tear. So Kyle Teal is just a name you want to keep your eyes on in case the White Sox do decide to call him up. Could be interesting at the catcher position.
Yeah, no, great take. I mean, with Teal, I think you said it very well. They got to see what they have for next year. So at some point, I think he'll be up this season, but I don't think it's going to be early. I think it's going to be at the end of the season, September call up, if anything. But it's either, I want to say poop or get off the pot again. So what I really want to say. But at this point, they got to see what they have in terms of their prospects. They actually have a decent amount of prospects between Montgomery, the other Montgomery, this kid, Kurt. There's plenty of prospects that they have that are actually should show out. So I think a lot of guys are going to be up because also too, it's okay, are we going to go and get rid of Robert and then, or are we holding on to Robert and what is Robert going to play for? We got to see what we can put around him. So it's time to either or get off the pot. So let's see what happens. I just don't think it's anytime soon. Let's move on to Jacob Misiorowski. I think I got that right.
Misiorowski, you were very close.
I was close. I took that off the cuff. I didn't look at the phonetic this time. But pitching prospect for the Milwaukee Brewers. And you know what? I don't know too much about this kid, but I will say this, just my brief preparation for the show. I like what he's got going on. 97 innings pitched last year, 127 strikeouts, a 3.33 ERA with a 1.2 whip. Everything I'm reading about him, he has some good stuff. It seems like he just wants to strike out every guy, hence why the whip is high. So far, he's starting off on a high note with 8 innings pitched and 11 strikeouts, no earned runs, and a 0.92 whip. That is a nice thing. No home runs given up. He hasn't really given up a lot of home runs to the amount of innings that he's pitched, which I'm actually pretty happy about. So let's just see what happens. Him playing for Milwaukee, I don't know if he's actually going to get the call this year. He's about 23 years old. I think, if anything, we might see him towards the middle of the year, end of the year. But again, slim chance he makes it up. It's a name you have to pay attention to because if he starts rocking and rolling and proving, hey, this is that year I'm breaking out to force myself onto the roster, there is a roster spot for a rotation spot for him. So let's see if he can kind of break it and see if he can perform. Because if he's performing and an injury happens, or guys just not living up to their pretty much what they're getting paid to do, he could easily come in there and take that job.
Yeah, Matt, and you know what? I'm actually a big Jacob Misiorowski guy. I got him in the same dynasty league that Matt and I play in. I got him, on my team there. It's always been a walks issue. Gives up too many walks, leaves too many guys on base, and that winds up being his problem. That's how the runs come in with Misiorowski. And Matt, you nailed it. He's trying to strike everybody out. Reminds me of a young DeGrom, or a young Scherzer going out there trying to strike everybody out. They finally figured out, hey, I don't have to strike everybody out. And then they find that finesse, and they wind up being pretty good. Misiorowski has the talent, he has the upside. Just the walks, man. If he can keep those guys off base, if he can, work that pitch count a little bit better, he can be, one of the best pitchers. Not one of the best pitchers in the league, but at a high end, the top 30, 40 pitcher, definitely. Because Matt said that fastball is elite. Kind of, has a good curveball, good slider. Just always been the control for Misiorowski. So if he can get there, and he's a big guy, 6'7", almost 200 pounds. Got to put on a little bit more on that frame. Go out there and stash him. I think he could get the call this year. Depends on how that Brewers rotation's playing. Depends on if they're in contention. And depends on Misiorowski himself if he gets that, Walker should figure it out. But guys, we have a couple more prospects, and then we have some guys that you need to stash on your IL. Those names and more coming up next.
Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shell variety, which I truly do. It's a perfect grab and go snack for a busy day, whether I'm snacking at my desk on a road trip or just need a quick protein boost. They're always good to go. And quite honestly, I got kids, so sometimes you just don't have a minute to think. So you just, slugging them down is great. And I love cracking open a shell option, which is with that satisfying crunch. Quite honestly, the in-shell option is one of my favorites. You're sitting there at the bar and you're just, cracking some open and eating some pistachios. Who's got it better than you, right? Get snacking, get cracking with the snack that packs protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And look, this episode, we're talking about some prospects. The only way to get around that, to know when they're getting the call up, is joining the subtext. Look, all these apps are awesome, but you can only have so many on your phone, or you can only know about so many that kind of give you those fast alerts. And somehow you seem to be missing out on, prospect call-ups and other fantasy baseball news. Well, there's only one way to get around that. Joining the subtext, become a member of the Dominick. It's in the description below. We're going to keep you ahead on that. We're going to give you waiver wire rankings. We're going to give you, insight on each show, on stats and things that we think we need to be highlighted, and so much more. Plus, you get direct access to us. So check out, get a free 2 weeks. Links in the description below. But Dom, I talked way too much there, my friend. You get this next guy, please.
Yeah, let's talk about this next guy, and it's Jordan Lawlar of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Shortstop prospect. A couple years ago was a very high-end prospect. I think he was even in the top 5 of all prospects in MLB, as little as 2 years ago. Dealt with injuries, dealt with performance issues, but he's finally starting to look a little bit better, and he's only 22 years old. Let's start with this. Lawlar had a great spring training, hit 290 with a homer, a couple of steals, didn't get caught stealing, and had 4 walks, 8 strikes. It looked great for the young shortstop. He's right on here to the minor league. Over 9 games so far. Jordan Lawlar has 7 RBIs, 4 steals, 9 runs, 3 goals. But he also has 5 walks to 10 strikeouts and hitting that same 294 was in spring training. So picked up right left off in spring training. Some could be up sooner than I forgot who. I think some heard on the Diamondbacks. Thought we were going to see Lawlar. Haven't seen him yet. I really think he could be hitting somebody had a bit of the back in 2020. Did he know? I think I apologize. I misspoke there. I don't think he got up things. If he does, the opportunity there. It's a great line for hitting, and he has the tools. A little bit more speed than pop, probably closer to, maybe like 18, 20 homers, but he could be a 40, steal guy easily, could hit for some average. Like I said, they could work on him into this lineup somewhere. I mean, Pavin Smith is DHing. They got Alec Thomas out there in center. It's Ketel Marte. No, I was right. Yeah, Ketel Marte, who got hurt on on the Diamondbacks. But they called up Tim Tawa. Not super familiar with him. We could have seen Jordan Lawlar, because he does play short. But who knows? I think it could be sooner than later with Lawlar. The talent is really good. They're high in prospect.
Yeah, I just think that they're going to be patient. They want to see him do it for longer than 5 minutes. Honestly, it's just, that first time he got the call was absolutely depressing. You look at this top prospect getting the call after having the season he was having in the minors leading up to his, inevitable call up. And it's just like, hey, what happened here? So I think they're going to be patient. I think they're going to wait and see what's going on with him because he hasn't had a bad minor league season. He just had a bad major league appearance. So I'm not completely out on him. He's just not my favorite prospect anymore to begin with. But, we'll see. The upside is still there. He's still a top end prospect. Let's just see what brings with him. I would definitely, scoop him in most leagues when he's called up just to, test the waters and see if he actually breaks out. But not the guy I'm most excited about, whether it's on this episode or of all prospects. He's definitely lost the shiny, glittery aspect of the appeal anymore. So, is what it is. But let me move on. I'm going to talk about Charlie Simpson. Another prospect here, our last prospect of the show, Tampa Bay Rays prospect. My guy is interesting. 37 at bats, 9 runs, no doubles, a triple, no bombs, 3 ribs, 5 stolen bases, batting .297. You look at what he's done in the past. He's not a home run guy at all. Career high in the minors is 1 home run, but loves to steal bases. He has 104 stolen bases last year across AA and A+. It's just monstrous. Don't think I've ever seen somebody break 100 stolen bases in any level of play. So that's really impressive, along with a .355 batting average. So this dude clearly is just a straight stolen base guy. He's going to be a guy that's probably going to get on base, lead off for the Rays if and when he gets the call, and is just going to steal everything like the Joker in Batman, just plowing through stores and just stealing everything under the sun because Chandler Simpson is just so fast. You just call him the Flash and call it a day. A lot of DC references right there. But it's interesting. I don't know if he gets the call this year. There's a possibility, but 24 years old, maybe. But the only way I'm picking him up is if I really need stolen bases. He's definitely a lower end prospect for me, at least in terms of prioritization.
Yeah, man. I think that's a good breakdown on Chandler Simpson there. The big thing with him, as you mentioned, is the speed, obviously. And the Rays do tend to baby their prospects. The big thing with him is just think like D. Gordon, Luis Arias. He could be a guy that hits 300 and gives you 60 steals. And that's going to be invaluable, if he can provide that, because just the level that he's giving you steals at, that's multiple steals a week. That's a guy that can go out there, give you, 3 steals in a game. He has that kind of speed that plays. He can hit for batting average. Let's just see what the Rays do with him. But Chandler Simpson, the reason that we like to talk about these prospects is so when they get called up, you're not looking at your phone saying, hey, who's Chandler Simpson? You're like, no, this is a guy that can steal 60 bases. And if you need that for your team, especially a 5 outfielder league, he's almost a cheat code in a situation like that. So if you see Chandler Simpson get the call, you need those steals, you make sure that you want to grab him. But before we move into the second half of this episode and we give you guys that you need to stash on your IL, I'll give you a little tease, a little Zach Neto, got names like that and more coming up next. And all right, guys, you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Of course, happens to all of us. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and I gotta admit, I am probably one of the most guilty of all of those. But that's where Monarch Money comes in, right? It's going to be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. With their surprise insights, when I first started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery, and oh boy, was me, I was unhappy. My girlfriend was unhappy. The whole situation was unhappy. But now I budget smarter and save more. With their easy collaboration, it makes managing your money with your partner, which I just spoke about, smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's Monarch Money, and use that code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. And all right, Matt. Can I talk about this next guy? I'm a little bit of a fan. If you don't mind.
You're welcome to the club. Yes, you can.
Let's talk some Zach Neto. And Zach Neto was a big guy on the podcast. We talked about him a lot last year. Somebody we tried to tell you all to pick up. And if you did, it probably worked out all right for you. Dealt with a little bit of injuries, but Neto overall, had a pretty solid year for those Angels, right? Did play in 84 games, had 289. Oh, I'm reading the wrong season. I apologize about that. Let's read you 2024, right? Let's do that. 155 games, 542 at-bats, 70 runs, 34 doubles, 23 home runs, 77 RBIs. He stole 30 bags. The walk to strikeout ratio needs a little bit of work, and he had 249. But once again, that was all as a 23-year-old in his first full-blown season in the majors, right? Zach Neto has the power. He's got the speed. He might not have the lineup. I think that's what's going to hold him back in the counting stats, right? But he's somebody who could even hit a little bit better in the batting average department. I think we could see him get up to 260-ish in a good season because he, once again, is still developing as a player at, 24 years old only this year. And guess what? Neto might be a little bit more highly owned on Yahoo. I think he's up to like over 60. But just want to mention it because if he's out there in some of the leagues you play in, you might want to snag him now because he's on that rehab assignment. He's played 6 games so far on his rehab assignment, 22 at-bats, 7 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, already stole a bag out there, hitting 273 with 4 walks and 7 strikeouts. Zach Neto is somebody who could be a threat. He's somebody I want to make sure he's owned in most of my leagues, if not all. Yeah, you probably want to add him now, especially if you need a shortstop. Honestly, must add in my opinion.
Agreed. He's a mustache at this point. I mean, you saw the premium that you had to pay for shortstops. You don't want if you missed out on a top end and you're relying on other guys that just really weren't in the higher tiers. Neto's a guy you definitely want to scoop up because honestly, before the injury, he was a lot higher in my rankings than in Dom's rankings. He actually was in my top 12. So,
I had him around there.
Yeah, you did. You had him like 13. So
yeah, it wasn't too far off.
No. So I mean, like he's one of those guys that just needs to be aware and you need to have on your team. So start stashing now. It's actually crazy that he's up to 65% owned already. So, get out there. He's only available in about 35% of leagues now. So do it before it's too late. Let's move on though. Let's talk about Rett Lowder of the Cincinnati Reds. I like him. If you guys watched a lot of mock drafts, he was always like my last pick or a guy I said, if I had another bench spot, this would be my guy because I'm a fan. I think the kid actually has some good stuff. I think that quite honestly, he's going to be a great pitcher. It doesn't matter where he is, even though he pitches in Great American Hater Park. He's a guy that, you look at what he's done over his, minor league career, and he's not a guy that gives up a lot of home runs. Gave up like 9 through like 108 innings. I mean, it's enough to be like, but at the same time, not like scary. So let's see what happens with him. He's always a guy that is going to have a little bit over a K per inning and have a decent ERA. I don't think he'll ever be like a sub 3 ERA, but he'll probably mid 3s ERA, and a guy that's going to perform. And you know what? Even with this elbow strain, I think that he's working his way back sooner than later. He's supposed to be starting throwing off the mound, and he's moving into some minor league games very soon. He's going to be starting off in Louisville very soon. Second, he starts going through his rehabs. I'm going to start stashing him, so it's a matter of time. So keep an eye out for that, and then pretty much just add him right to your IL. If you don't have an IL, then don't do anything about it. But if you do, add him.
Yeah, a good take on Lowder there. He's somebody who could be interesting, as he recovers from the forearm issue. Definitely want to see how he looks in recovery before I'm adding him anywhere, basically what Matt said there. So, throw him on your watch list for now. Once again, Rett Lowder, starting pitcher, Cincinnati Reds. Let's move on to this next guy who I think is super, super interesting. Let's talk Jack Leiter. Man, did this kid have a hot start, to the season. First 2 starts this year for Leiter. He went 10 innings, 10 strikeouts, an 0.9 ERA, and an 0.7 whip. The kid was finally starting to live up to the hype. Had a little bit of a blister on his hand, got thrown on the IL. 52% owned on Yahoo. I truly think the injury scared everybody off. Getting thrown on the IL scared everybody off because the whole thing is coming off that second start. If he would have finished that start and he would have, continued to dominate the way he was in that start back on April 2nd against Cincinnati, in Cincinnati too, he would have been up to almost universally owned. So I think this is the move. You stash Leiter now, and then you reap the rewards later on. Jack Leiter won championships over at Vanderbilt, one of the best starting pitchers, prospects that we've seen in a long time. But once again, my saying, and I'll say it again because I always say it, progression isn't always linear. A guy like Leiter took a little bit more time for him to figure things out, but now that he's locked in, he's somebody who could really, really, really be very, very good. Definitely mustache. Once again, Jack Leiter, Texas Rangers, 52% owned on Yahoo. Get him now.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you said. Quite honestly, he's a guy that I've always liked. So got nothing else to say. You pretty much said it all. So let's move on. Let's talk about Cabrera of the Miami Marlins. So he has a finger injury. He should be activated soon. He's already joined the team. It's just a matter of when. The thing is, I'm not really a fan of him. He's a strikeout machine, but the ERA is so volatile and the outcomes are so volatile that, quite honestly, I'm not really going to add him whatsoever. In a pinch, in a stream, if it's a really, cupcake matchup, yeah, I'll add him. But he has no long-term value. I think that we've kind of seen enough of him that I could tell you his story. He's going to try and strike out everybody and have a really, really high whip. He's going to give up a lot of home runs. And even in a park where he's super protected, the ball is still going to fly out because he just throws meatballs every once in a while. So Eric Cabrera, I just think, is throwing too hard for his own good and isn't trying to control the ball. For me, I'm out. But he'll be somebody we talk about to stream week in and week out. The only time I'm really at him is 15-man in deeper leagues or NL-only leagues. That's when he becomes really relevant. Other than that, mixed league and anything of that sort or shallower leagues such as 12-10, don't even look at his way because he's not worth it unless it's a stream for the week.
Matt nailed that take. Absolutely perfect. Edward Cabrera's 3% owned
That's
on
right.
Yahoo. You succeed, my friend. You succeed. And you're once again deeply cut, 3% owned on Yahoo. Edward Cabrera, Miami Marlins starting pitcher. Let's move on to this last guy. I think this is the last opportunity here. Or if not, we're truly approaching it within the next week or two. Brandon Woodruff, starting pitcher, Milwaukee Brewers, 58% owned on Yahoo. He's going to be back sooner than later. I think he threw a simulated game last week, 51 pitches, 3 innings. He's got another simulated game. Actually, it happened Monday. Don't see an update on how that went for him. But don't forget, we have Nestor Cortez, Aaron Savale, and Tobias Myers all in the IL for the Brewers, right? So I do think as much as they want to slow play this year with Woodruff, if he's a guy that goes out there and gets 2 rehab starts that look pretty good, if that first one goes 2-3 innings, that second one he could build up to 5, which isn't happens most of the time. It's maybe like a 40% chance, but I think at max, maybe it's 4 rehab starts. I think we see Woodruff about a month, maybe 3 weeks if everything works out right for him. But this guy's a mustache. This guy's a top 20 pitcher, if not top 15 pitcher when healthy. He was having a pretty good spring training, if I remember correctly, before he got hurt. Just somebody that you definitely want to have, on your team and not your opponent's team, because honestly could be a league-winning pickup if you're able to stash him on your IL and get him for free 99. Could wind up being your SP2-3.
Yeah, facts. You said it very well. Quite honestly, he's reporting Monday. So here we go. The clock is ticking. I'm excited. He's still only 58% owned. So what are you guys doing out there? Add him immediately if he's there. God, Brandon Woodruff just has been a consistent pitcher for his whole career. So please do yourself a service because you're going to hate being on the other side of that. I promise you. But guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to share this show. We love doing it every week. So, the more you share it, the more we're sticking around. We're almost at 4,000 subscribers on the tubes.
Come on, let's go. Road to 4,000.
Share our stuff, please. We appreciate it. And, when you're done, check out our boy Soli over at Locked On MLB and check out what we're doing nightly over with the MLB show on YouTube. So check us out on there. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Peace out.
See ya.